All right, we'll begin this meeting of the Cunningham Town Board for Monday, May 6th, 2019. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustees Brown. Here. Hazen. Here. Hersey.
Here.
Jacobson.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Roberts.
Here.
Wu.
Here.
Minutes of the previous meeting, April 1st, 2019. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Was that Jared?
That was me.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Jared, seconded by Sharice. Any corrections? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Any additions to the agenda? Public participation. Does anyone wish to address the Cunningham Town Board? Okay. Next up is committee to verify bills, the town fund and general assistance fund.
Okay. It was a very busy day at the office, and all of your printouts are sitting on my desk. I apologize. So I emailed the supervisor's report to you right before this meeting. You did have the bills on Thursday. The town fund, in the town fund, we had $67,285.36. In the general assistance fund, we had $99,480.50, and that comes to a total of $166,765.86. Yeah, I'll stop there, and then I can talk about the stats in my memo.
Any questions on this?
I'll move approval of the funds.
Okay, I'll second that.
Moved by Jared, seconded by Dennis. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
those opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Reports of officers.
Okay. So just in terms of general assistance participants, we're seeing a tapering off of participants for a second month in a row. So we're now down to 106, down from 112 total. And it's a mixture of the tapering off is the sixth lost is a mixture of folks who were canceled from our programs due to non-participation in the community work program, and also folks getting employment. There's about half and half. Some folks moving into jobs and we're still working with folks who disconnect from our program, trying to work on some of the root issues. They primarily, they tend to be related to mental health or substance abuse when that does happen. And so we're going to be meeting with Rosecrans to talk specifically about how we could tighten up that partnership. We have 32 who participate in community work fair. One right now on the job search track. That's down from 4, so the 3 who were on the job search track actually got jobs and moved off this last month. 52 are disabled seeking SSI or SSDI. 28 are homeless. In fact, a number of the people who we tend to see cycling are homeless, and the average age stays steady at 49 years old. In homeless assistance, we served 6 this month, down from 13 last month. We had 5 rental assistance cases, including 3 homeless individuals who were able to get into housing. One homeless gentleman had actually been homeless for 10 years, and this is his first place of residence in subsidized housing in those 10 years. He's totally ecstatic. And it's been a long road because there were a number of things having to do with to clear up so that he could move into housing. And then we had 1 eviction prevention case. In fact, many of the cases, all 5 cases were actually cases of moving into subsidized housing. Steer Place, which is a housing for seniors and disabled residents in Urbana, had a waitlist opening in March, and we called every single person on our list. I have an intern who specifically calls through to help people get on subsidized housing. He called through everyone multiple times, helped everyone he could apply for housing. We helped 13 households apply, and a number of those are folks who were able to get into Steer Place. Also, this last month I spoke at the Fair Housing Conference. HOPE is a Fair Housing Center in Chicago that was started at the same year of the Fair Housing Act. And I spoke specifically about how to advocate before your elected officials in moving housing advocacy policy. So that was really exciting. And I hope to be discussing with the Human Relations Commission some of the ways, some recommendations our office has in terms of addressing housing discrimination. And then last but not least, we are launching our Township Garden events. We have a garden coordinator, 2 garden interns, and if you look, you'll see a lot of greens that are coming up. It's a beautiful space. We recently received 71 seedlings for tomatoes. We're not sure if we can use 71, but we're really happy. Part of what we'll do is we're going to be putting them into container gardens and helping people make their own container gardens to take home. So our event launches in the document that I sent you. There's an invitation. I'll also be sending around an invitation that you can share with your networks. May 25th, which is a Saturday, from 4 to 7 p.m. It'll be part of the Get Down downtown. The downtown Get Down will be a piece of that equation. So we're in partnership with the city of Urbana. Wooden Hog Barbecue is going to be helping to provide some barbecue, and we'll have live music by Karina Say. And then people will be able to make container gardens to take home. We're still looking for containers, so if you're cleaning out, anyone who's listening, if you're cleaning out your garage for spring cleaning, we could use additional containers. You can just drop them in front of the township, and we will sanitize and organize and prepare them so that people can plant any kind of small, not the little tiny seedling one, but any of the pots. So any kind of transportable pots that we can put plants in. We want to grow a lot of things in Urbana this year. And I think that's it for my report. Wayne, do you have a report from officers? I'll make room.
So this month, the assessor's office, we've been busy valuing, getting ready to send a little notices to everybody and let them know if their assessments are going up or down. It's a very exciting time for our office. As far as those increases, the neighborhoods that do get increase, I mean, it'll be around 2%, but those numbers haven't been finalized yet. We're coming up. We're also looking at commercial values, and those will be seeing quite a bit larger of an increase. And because of that, we sent out a piece of mail to every commercial parcel. We send it to the same address that their property tax bills go to, basically asking them to come meet with us on May 29th so we can talk about what's going on with commercial assessments. If you ever look, a lot of commercial assessments haven't changed in the last 8 years or more, and that needs to be corrected. So I sent out a letter to basically every taxpayer that has a commercial parcel, so we can talk about the next steps.
Time and place.
It's going to be here, May 29th, here at the City Council chambers at from 11:30 to 1:30. We have about, so every year we send out mail to every senior that gets a senior exemption. What happens is the county assessor requires that every senior that gets a senior exemption sign a letter saying that both they're still over the age of 65 and they still live in the property. That was actually in your bill today. It was like $700 worth of postage that went to the county assessor's office. After looking more into this particular issue, what happens is that everyone getting this piece of mail is over the age of 65. Quite a few people are low income, and they get confused by the letter, right? Why do we have to certify that we're still over the age of 65? It's not like we're getting younger. As far as I know, Tom Brady doesn't live in a township. So I actually hope to have discussions with the county assessor to see if we can go about changing this. Vermilion County, they don't send out letters. They just wait for the property to change hands, and then they take away the senior exemption. Obviously, we would have to mail annually to some people because the senior freeze, that varies based on your income, and you have to certify that every year. As of right now, we have about 400 people that haven't returned their forms to certify that they are in fact still over the age of 65 and live in the property. On the agenda today is a request to intervene in PTAB, and I can talk more about that particular request when we get to that. But there are about 4 other cases that are working their way through the system that I'll likely intervene in the future. We've also we're almost finished with installing the new assessment software. At this point, the provider is customizing the software to kind of our taste, and that's going pretty well. And for the past 2 weeks, I have been bugging the county clerk about tax extensions, and we finally got it, so I'll be discussing that with Danielle over the next couple days. Any questions?
Thank you, Wayne. Is there any unfinished business? Okay, we'll move on to new business. First up is resolution number T 2019-05-007R, which is a resolution authorizing Cunningham Township Supervisor to sign a user agreement with socialserve.com for access to the statewide referral network.
So this is an exciting user agreement because it will allow us to actually access and directly use a list for needy individuals and families who are looking for housing. So that includes people who are homeless, those who are disabled, and people who are in vulnerable situations. We're going to get trained all of our staff will be trained in the statewide referral network. It will actually participate in partnership with the Housing Authority in a larger training of social services to better access this network. And I might have mentioned to you everyone who receives tax credits, like every property that receives tax credits, is required to set aside a certain amount of units for references to the statewide referral network. There are 70 approximately units in Champaign County that should be doing this, but they're not. And so essentially, we're in the process of identifying, or they're doing it in an uneven way, but mostly we're unaware of this or not participating in it. So what we want to do is be able to refer people to the statewide referral network and then have those referrals come back to the community. And then essentially the property managers are required to hold those spaces open for 30 days for referrals from statewide referral network. And then if they don't have someone who qualifies, they can fill it. Obviously, they might have an interest in not renting to vulnerable populations and just going ahead and filling it, and that's part of what's been happening. So we're really trying to make some reform in how the statewide referral network works with our local community and tax credit housing to ensure that we have a number of homeless individuals in the community, and we have empty units that in some cases have project-based vouchers attached to them that remain empty for months on end. And so we're really trying to fix this problem of in the model of rapid rehousing rather than just relying on emergency shelter, trying to get folks into housing opportunities. So this is just, I want to give you this is a small piece of the puzzle, but the big picture is let's make full use of all the housing resources we have in our community. And the Housing Authority has really kind of helped to lead the way and brought this to my attention that this was happening. And then we're in the process of, once we can use it, we can actually help other groups and homeless service providers through the continuum of care table access this service. So I would hope that you would give me the power to sign this so that we can move forward with that partnership.
Is there a motion?
I would do that. I move adoption of Resolution T 2019-05-00R, resolution authorizing the Cunningham Township Supervisor to sign a user agreement with socialserve.com for access to the statewide referral network.
Second.
I defer to the honorable member from Ward 3.
Seconded by Sharice. Any further discussion? Bill?
So this just allows Cunningham Township to access this referral network. How does this overlap with like the county 211, and what do the other 20 or 30 townships in the county do?
Well, I don't know what the other townships do. That's for another discussion. But I will say that essentially what happens when you call 211, which is important, and people should know that 211 is the number to call if people are needing services in the community. In theory, if all of the agencies regularly keep their information up to date at 211, then a caller can refer people to the agency in need. If you're homeless or you're facing eviction, that caller should be referred to centralized intake for the homeless and the rental assistance hotline on the county level. The issue is that you don't get on the statewide referral network until you have case management. You have to have a case manager. So it's really important that the case managers through the agencies need to be hooked up to the statewide referral network. And it's also the case that until you receive an assessment as a homeless family, you aren't entered into the statewide referral network. And only those who have case management receive that. So actually the vast majority of families who are now being screened by centralized intake for the homeless are not referred to the statewide referral network because they require case management, and there is no case management attached to the centralized intake for the homeless, which is a problem that we need to solve structurally. So we're basically bypassing that for now and going to directly post our participants to the statewide referral network while also working with centralized intake for the homeless, but understanding that these two things are parallel, and that we're working essentially, there's case management is not really hooked up to homeless intake at this point, and that best practices across the country is as soon as a homeless individual or resident is identified or family is identified, they should have a case manager, even if housing is not available to them. And they should, or an advocate of some sort who's basically tracking and following that case. And so that is a broken piece of the system we need to solve. So we definitely at the township, if a homeless family or individual comes in, they're in our system and we can support them as long as they live in Urbana. If they're in Champaign, we refer them to Champaign. But essentially if they're in Urbana, we track and support them through that process. So we now basically qualify our participants for the statewide referral network in a way that did not exist before. And I'm really hopeful that this will mean that we can kind of crack this nut. There's several stages to it, and be able to, what we have is a master list of every person we work with who's homeless, and we essentially have the goal of getting everyone into subsidized housing of some sort, whether that's through the housing authority, which only has open wait lists at particular times, or other kinds of subsidized tax credit housing that does not work through housing authority at all, or it's whether through going through the statewide referral network through the state and back. So we basically are going to use all available means to get people into housing, and we're going to track and support them until they get into housing. And I'm hopeful that in future reports, we're still putting our case management software doesn't do what we want it to do yet, but I should be able to actually report to you everyone who we're tracking, whether they are on GA or just have received homeless assistance, or we're advocating for them in some way, like they don't qualify for either, and we'll track what their status is in terms of their housing. And we actually are going to color code folks by red, yellow, and green. So basically you're red if you're street homeless or in a very precarious situation. You're yellow if you are vulnerable, and then you're green if and you're paying more than you can in terms of your rent, and you're green if you're in a stable situation. So hopefully our office will actually be able to see who is facing homelessness and housing insecurity, and over time through our advocacy efforts use all the available means. This is just one piece of that equation. And there is quite a bit of systems fixing to do in that regard. At some point, I'd be happy to talk further about that.
Since it's a statewide referral network, does that mean that if somebody here has family in another town in the state or has some opportunity, they'd really rather live someplace else, then we could possibly find
Exactly.
subsidized housing near
Yep,
those
it's
locations?
totally statewide, and it goes the other way as well. If somebody would like to relocate to our community, that's almost always because they have family or some connection here. They could use it as well. So it does provide additional flexibility.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Does this require a roll call? Voice? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion passes. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
For a resolution?
All right, will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes.
Hersey,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
and Wu.
Yes.
That motion passes. Next up is ordinance number T 2019-05-001, which would be the ordinance approving the annual budget and appropriation ordinance for fiscal year 2019-2020. And a reminder, you'll be, when it comes time for action, you'll be designating this as the draft budget and placing it on file for a public hearing on July 1st, 2019, and possible final vote at that time.
So, my suggestion in terms of a process is we've published this and offered it to you as of last Thursday. Essentially, what we're looking to do is I'd like to present on it, since there will be a longer presentation in June, and that essentially you would then have your public hearing and approval July 1. I'm not going to go through the details of the budget, since you just got a chance to look at it. And there will be some changes. For example, I didn't know what the extension was until about an hour ago. So I don't actually know what kind of income we guessed on income. We also are still getting information from IMRF about our liability, whether or not we want to add additional contributions to shore up that liability. And then I'm in the process of doing performance reviews in my office and making decisions about raises. So right now, this is basically just a tentative look at doing a cost of living increase. So instead of going into all of the details today, my suggestion is you have it so that you can begin to look at it, and that we'll actually be providing an updated version over the next few weeks as we get additional answers to some of the questions. The other piece is that I think the plan for the social service allocation portion is that it will come to the council next Monday with recommendations from our selection committee that included Mary Alice Wu, and two staff members from my office who are frontline staff, and then two staff from the city staff. And that will be for your discussion, and then based on what you decide, we can update the budget as well with the specific numbers for what would be in Cunningham Township's wheelhouse. So I'm happy if you had specific questions about the budget now. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. We're also, Wayne and I are available by phone or email, and we'll be making some additional changes to the budget going forward.
Mary Alice.
So I was looking at the GA, the general assistance numbers, and I'm wondering if you could clarify some things maybe in your future document about this. So in this year's budget, you have that we've spent approximately $414,000 for 125 participants, which is over the levied amount that we have. And then you project in next year's budget that we're only going to spend $336,000, which includes an increase to 280. Last year you had said that we were increasing it to 275, and this says that it's currently at 265. So I have three questions. My first question is, A, how much are we paying in GA? Are we paying the 275 or are we paying the 260? B, why is the projected number way less than what we're currently paying right now? So those are two questions, not three, sorry.
So we're currently paying $265. We budgeted for $275, but because the GA rolls were shooting up so rapidly, I felt that we would not be able to meet budget, so I was waiting to level off. And essentially, at this point, it looks like our first increase is going to be with the new year. The second, which was not your question but is relevant to the budget, is that we recently received a letter saying that DHS requires that the minimum assistance level be $304. So I had a meeting with Andy Kornstrom this morning to try to understand if this is mandatory or not. You know, should I basically be revising the budget for 304? Or, because in this case, I'm looking at 280. The reason I set the number at 280 is because that's what the city of Champaign Township has been, and Andy and I are trying to basically queue up to have the exact same assistance level. But in the meeting this morning, he told me that he's considering going to the 304 because of this memo. What's interesting is the memo came very recently, but it says that the assistance levels needed to have been at that level since October of last year. So we're all very confused and trying to figure out what is being communicated. Then your second question has to do with, I'm projecting, because we're seeing it leveling out, I had budgeted for 125, and I think I'm budgeting for, I was just looking, I budgeted for 115 at 280 per month for 12 months. So the numbers came down in part because I think that we can level off at a lower number. Also, I hadn't looked at the caseload projections. So you'll see that there's a graph of the caseload projections going, actual caseload going back to the 70s. I was under the impression that the average was a little bit higher based on when I was on town board and kind of anecdotal evidence. And so that's why I wanted to pull the data to see what I thought would be more realistic numbers. So I've adjusted down. But now, in terms of dollars, I might need to adjust up if we're required to do the 304. And I don't particularly object to 304. I think that we should have done a better job of keeping up with inflation. I just would like to know if that's a requirement or not. So I'll be probably having a conversation with Fred here shortly, but that just came in the last few days. Does that answer your question?
It does. I guess the larger one is we're talking about roughly a difference of $80,000. So a difference from what we're spending right now in terms of what was projected to be spent next year, which is a decrease of 80,000. Does that cover 10 additional people?
Is it, are you looking at the personal allowances line item?
Yeah, so I'm actually looking at page 5 and page 6.
Okay.
So perhaps I'm
Page 5.
looking at apples and oranges.
5 and 6.
Personal allowance projections exceed the overall levy amount.
Yes.
Budget general assistance program. So what, maybe that's the difference. It's
Oh,
the difference
as
between
a result, I'm sorry, it should have said for the current year. So it's the personal allowance projections for the current year. We're at 414 if we had 125 participants. And that's basically what I'm quoting is I'm quoting the current year's budget that we budgeted for 14 for 125 participants. And if you look in the budgeted line item, that's about where we were at. And then that what is budgeted for the year we're in exceeds the overall levy amount
Right.
for the year that we're in. And that's what I was trying to point out. It may be that we can, that's part of why I'm kind of trying to rein in that levy. I mean, the projections for next year. That said, it's an entitlement, and so those who qualify for that, for the personal allowance will receive it. So if for some reason, God forbid we have a worse recession than we've experienced, I would anticipate that I would go up. If the economy does better this next year, we may come under our budgeted projection.
So that's not related to the top bullet point on page 6.
The top bullet point on page 6 is referring to the current budget year. And let me make sure that that's the right amount. It's not. It's, I'm sorry, there must be a typo. I said 336, but if you look in the budget, it's actually 386.
Okay, that makes more sense to me.
That's
I couldn't
the problem,
figure out
and
the
it's a
80 grand.
$50,000 typo
Okay, all right.
in the memo, not in the budget.
Yeah, I was reading the memo and muddling my way through the
Yeah.
budget. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I'll correct that. Any other questions that folks have? Go ahead, Eric.
I'm gathering from what you said that this 304 is statewide and doesn't take account of cost of living difference between cities. And I just very quickly looked at the comparison between Urbana and Chicago, and our cost of living overall is about 30% less. Most of that is housing. Our housing costs are about half in Chicago. So I know we can't do anything about this mandate directly, but is it a point of discussion to raise with our representatives in Springfield that DHS should take different, cost of living in different cities into account when they make rules like this?
My understanding is that in large cities, general assistance doesn't exist because the township form of government looks different in those. And so I'm not sure exactly how general assistance is implemented in the city of Chicago.
Okay.
And Wayne is saying it's not. And then I think it shows up as a different program. And then the second is that it is the case that general assistance, and I've been reminded this of actually several folks who have walked in the office who had been on general assistance when it could pay their rent. And it $265 won't pay your rent, nor will 304. So 380, Andy had actually said he was projecting to go up from the 280 that he was at, higher anyway. So it's not that, it's within field goal range, as they would say, from what we were kind of looking to do. So I'm not particularly concerned about that mandate. I just wanted to let the town board know that that's an example of the kind of thing that's kind of like a day-to-day shift in terms of new information coming in that we'll need to look into with the updated budget.
Bill?
I had a question about the SSI reimbursements. So far this fiscal year, we've only received $7,000 some dollars, and the budget was $25,000, and budgeting $20,000 for next year. It seems like when we get your reports, there's always, 10 or 15% of the people getting kind of preliminary SSI, that we expect to get SSI. Is that about right?
Yeah, it's
I don't have your
actually the
latest one,
number of
so.
people who are on the SSI rolls. It's usually close to half.
It's almost half.
Yeah, so it's significant in terms of our roles. That said, that there's many of them that we've seen like an 8-year process, 6-year process. I mean, it's been a lengthy, if not impossible, process, which is one of the things we're trying to correct. I overshot the budget estimate this year because I was overly ambitious that we would be able to implement the SOAR process, which we've trained our staff in, and we've trained 8 case managers across different agencies in. And there have been hiccups in implementing that and starting it and having people be able to use that and move people through the process. I'm also looking at lower bar ways, since it's a fairly case management heavy process that is focused on homeless individuals, looking at other ways in which we could help people put in good applications that are actionable. There's a lot of folks who, when almost everyone is applying by themselves. So we've been now meeting with, and open to meeting with any attorney in the community. There are only a few that do SSI, SSDI cases, and talking to them about how best to help people prepare their cases and when to use an attorney and when not. So I put 20,000 in partly because I now have I have 2 SOAR trained staff, and I brought in 1 part-time staff member who just works on this, who I think will pay for herself through the process. And she's already started on her first case. So I'm hoping that $20,000 will be more reasonable. The other thing I found is that the township, it's important that we have documentation in place to receive full reimbursement. And there were some practices in place where it didn't appear that we were renewing the contracts regularly and making sure that we got full reimbursement for the full time that someone is on GA. So I've done a full audit of everybody and their, what is called a DPA, their agreement to repay, and make sure that everybody is covered, that, you know, that it's covered for the time that they've been on GA and that we're receiving full payments. So between those two things, that's why I think we'll see an increase in this next year. Maybe 20,000 is too ambitious, but I'd like to
They all
shoot for
seem
it.
pretty low to me, considering that half of our client cases.
It's because we just can't get approvals. We just can't, we're not getting approvals.
Huh.
People sit in a kind of purgatory called waiting for SSI for a very, very long time, and these are very sick people who have a clear medical verification to our office from their doctor that says they do not appear to be able to work and have no, you know, they don't see in the foreseeable future their ability to work. But yeah, that system is another broken system. We're trying to crack open.
Fix one at a time, I guess.
Mm.
I did have another question on the health insurance for the assessor's office, going from 27,000 to 44,000. I know he'd like to add another position, but that shouldn't be that much difference. Why is the health insurance budgeted for so much more? Oh, wait, going from 44,000 to 69,000, that's the budget.
Yeah, it's 44 to 60. I'll let Wayne respond to that. What's that? You think it's a typo? What was your understanding? What was the percentage that you added? 8% is what he had projected.
From
So
somebody
we can
that's
take a look at that and
49,000
see
or
if,
something. Okay.
we've over-projected on that.
Okay, thanks.
Hmm?
Do you want to speak into the
Can you speak at
microphone?
the microphone so folks can, the listening audience can hear you?
All right, so part of that was when we did the budget last year, I wasn't fully staffed for this year in terms of having 3 full-time employees. So I guess what our insurance costs would be based off the staff that I had. When I added basically our mix of staff and what they have, whether it's single coverage versus family coverage, that changed and that caused the increase in the health insurance for this year. Plus, we estimated an 8% increase in health insurance costs, but that was just a guess.
Okay, I was just kind of looking at the personnel under supervisor's office. Looks like health insurance was about less than 15% of total personnel costs, and in years it's closer to 20%. But yeah, I guess the mix could make a difference.
Any other questions?
Jared?
I'd like to move approval of this as the draft budget and put it on file so that we will be able to announce for the later issue of this budget. I don't know if that's all the right language. Just trying to go off Charlie's email.
Public hearing on July 1st.
Yeah, for the public hearing on July 1st.
Second.
Moved by Jared, seconded by Eric. Any further discussion? Do we need a roll call on this?
No, you do not. It's just a motion to designate it as the tentative budget to set a hearing date.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion passes. Last up is a resolution T 2019-05-008R, which is a resolution authorizing a request to intervene in a formal hearing with the Illinois Property Tax Appeal Board.
Yeah.
Wayne?
If there's not further questions for me, I'm actually going to step out because I'm getting calls from my child, so, thank you. Good
Thank
night.
you.
So this is the Shop and Save parcel. This is to intervene in a 2018 case. We're actually already intervened in a 2017 case. So basically what happened, it hadn't been decided yet. They appealed the assessment in 2018 to the Board of Review, and then now they're appealing the Board of Review decision to PTAB. So this is basically continuing our intervention in that particular parcel. Are there any more questions, or?
Okay, I'll make a motion then. I think that's probably appropriate. Make a decision once, you want to continue with that decision. So I move that we adopt Resolution T 2019-05-008R, which is the resolution authorizing request to intervene in a formal hearing with the Illinois Property Tax Appeal Board.
I'll second that. Go get 'em.
Moved by Dennis, seconded by Eric. Any further discussion? Jared?
Just a note that in the resolution provided, it is 000R. So I don't know if we need to.
Did I miss the zeros?
Well, one of them is wrong. Either the resolution number is wrong or the memo number is wrong. So just a point of order, when that actually goes into record, somebody should probably check and make sure that's the right number.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There's not an 8 in the actual document itself.
Yeah. the
I imagine
resolution
it's supposed to
and
be 8,
eight.
but
Yeah, sometimes these go out before they're completely.
note to the
indexed,
clerk.
So it'll be 008.
Thank you for noticing that. Any further discussion? Will the clerk, roll call? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustees Brown?
Yes.
Hazen? Yes. Hersey?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Miller?
yes.
Roberts?
Yes.
And Wu.
Yes.
That motion passes. With no further business before the Cunningham Town Board, this meeting is adjourned.